What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here. WrestlingInc.com, Wrestling Inc. podcast, here with a true pioneer of mixed martial arts, and he's still doing it at the highest level. You see him on New Japan on Access every Friday night. You see him fight in the UFC. Now you're going to see him in the newest Never Back Down film, Never Back Down, No Surrender. Josh Barnett, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Now, we talked very little bit about catch wrestling before we went on the air here. It seems like it's almost in a catch wrestler's personality to dip their toes in several different things, and that certainly would describe you. You're all over the map. How do you have time for everything?
Well, that's a good question. Sometimes it really doesn't seem like I do. But for me, it's just a matter of making the most of opportunities as they present themselves and trying to live as fulfilling and varied a life as possible. I figure the more life experiences that a person can gather, the better off, the more well-rounded, the more knowledgeable that they're going to be as an individual altogether. Plus, you're opening the opportunity for more expansive life experiences, more fun, more interest, a broader perspective, and finding ways in which to challenge yourself is always a good thing too. And let me tell you, acting is not like fighting. You cannot just try harder at acting. It's a more subtle thing than that. So I like the opportunity to be nervous, to feel like I'm on the spot in something that I just don't have the experience in.
How did this opportunity come about?
Well, I had been going to acting class, and I'd been doing things here and there, from like skits on the Tonight Show to little internet pieces here. I've done a short film, and I did a film before this one with Steven Seagal, and I did an indie film called Chuck Hank and the San Diego Twins that we're still waiting to be released. But I've been getting my what is the term? My toes wet in terms of acting. But one of the people who was really very positive and very supportive, encouraging that I should even really get into the realm of doing acting on a more serious basis was Michael Jai White. He's a friend of mine, and I met him some years ago, and just through conversations, he was one of the people that really believed that I should be putting my efforts into this, that I had a possibility to do something with it, and that I really need to explore this. And so when the opportunity came around for me to be able to be a part of a project for him, in a way where he was saying, I got to be the guy, otherwise it doesn't work. That, having that kind of faith in me, it just was just a more motivating factor for me to show up and be a part of this. And I felt like part of this was of course having a bigger role in a movie for me, and more experience and more heavy lifting for the acting side of things, but also an opportunity to pay him back for his belief in me and for all his support and encouragement, and to try and give him my best because he believed that it was what was needed, and that it was what the right thing, and to try and prove him right. So I was really proud to be a part of this with him.
And I mean, you said you'd been going to acting classes, so acting is something that you would like to continue doing?
Yeah, I would. I'm a big cinemaphile, and I've got a long and varied list of films and film moments that are important to me, that I really take pleasure in. And so, from being able to be, maybe just a supporting character in some of the most famous films of all time, so if you could have been the lead, I mean, to be a part of those things, to be able to look back, if that opportunity presents itself, in a more modern environment, you could be the guy, a part of some film that becomes, a part of cult history, or just something that is beloved, or that moves people, or just part of something that's just really cool, man. If you could be able to help create that and be a part of that and bring it to life, that just seems pretty awesome to me.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You're involved in several different things that will kind of make you live forever. I mean, your fighting career, your wrestling career, your announcing career, and now your acting career. This will always be around. something that I've often heard when I'll interview people about how they got into fighting, a lot of them will cite cinema as maybe one of the motivating factors. Was that for you, or did you get in through, watching fighting?
I'm sure media played a part. With things like Fist of the North Star, the anime being one of my favorite cartoons or animes and shows of all time, and loving those characters and the comic books that I would read, and being a fan of all the martial arts films growing up, like all the old Shaw Brothers and Hong Kong stuff coming over from the late 60s and early 70s and late 80s even, to the big home video boom of the 80s, and movies like Bloodsport and Lionheart and The Quest, and having that sort of material to watch and absorb and be entertained by. Hey man, Street Fighter and Street Fighter 2 came out when I was a kid. So the idea of this martial arts competitions has existed in my consciousness for a very long time. So I would be hard pressed to feel like they didn't have any influence on me being a part of all this.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, Stephen Quadros, who you're no stranger to, obviously, is a part of the movie, and former WWE star Nathan Jones. Is that correct?
Yes. Nathan plays the main villain. Well, actually, you know what? I take that back. He's not really the main villain, but he's the main physical threat in this movie. And Stephen Quadros, he plays my trainer, Maddie. And Stephen is actually no stranger to the acting and television world. Not just through being a commentator, but he's had plenty of time up on the silver screen and the small screen as well. So, not to mention being an entertainer for many years before that, being a drummer in a band called Snow on the Sunset Strip.
Oh, wow. I'm pretty sure, I think when I was younger, I actually spotted Steven in, Cradle to the Grave or something like that.
Yes, he was in that. He was in some movie. It wasn't called Night of the Demons. I don't know. He was in some horror flick where he plays a guitar player in a band. He's been around quite a bit. I think he was on Walker, Texas Ranger once. I mean, he's been around the scene.
Indeed. You're also involved with New Japan Pro Wrestling on Access. You've gotten, pretty much universal acclaim, and your style of calling wrestling is very natural. You don't seem produced at all, much less overproduced like some guys. Do you think that being able to just go out there and do what you do plays a big role in that? And why don't you think that's done more on other levels of pro wrestling announcing?
You mean having the background experience as being a professional fighter, amateur wrestler, catch wrestler, professional, like having all the actual combat experience, you mean?
Sure. Why don't you think that's implemented more?
Gordon Soley, to my understanding, and I could be wrong, wasn't, a well-known wrestler of his own right, but he could call the action straight up. Well, for one, we're not produced hardly much at all. JR and I, and before with Mauro and I, they pretty much leave us to our own selves, and we just go out there and run with it. And if we make a mistake, we'll maybe back it up, but we hardly ever stop rolling. We just go, and I think that allows for us as the announcers to be as natural as possible, and to be as in the moment as possible. We know what we need to talk about when we get there, when we show up at the studio. We know what's important as far as the matches are concerned, and if they had something that we needed to plug in there somehow, I don't have any doubts that we could fit it all in without making it seem forced. So I think some of that goes to our credibility and our skill, but I think also some of it goes to the way we approach trying to be in that position of a commentator and not just being a talking Facebook ad. And the reality is people tune in to watch the matches, to watch the wrestlers, and to be entertained by watching wrestling. So the most important thing is to emphasize the wrestling and the wrestlers as much as possible, for the in-ring action to be the forefront. And all we're doing is highlighting those things and helping it to be more understandable and therefore more exciting to the people watching at home. And I think that if you treat it that way, if you treat it with seriousness and you have the intent to have it stand out as a real legitimate contest, then it changes the nature of the product, and I think it makes people much more invested.
I really thought that the match that you all called between Kushida and Kyle O'Reilly, I thought that was the best hour of wrestling that maybe I've seen in years, if not ever. I watched it last year without English commentary, and I was just waiting for you and then Mauro at the time to get a hold of it, but you and JR did. Unbelievable stuff. What are the differences between working with Mauro and working with JR?
I think some of it's an intensity difference. Mauro is more, he's much more vocal in terms of putting out information and data. He's not a talking computer per se, but in Mauro's head, man, there's a ton of information, and he does a great deal of prep work on past, present, future, everything related to these web episodes we're going to watch. I mean, he comes in with stacks of papers, and that's probably just more reminders of stuff that's already floating up there in his head. He's really fantastic. And JR has a smoother aspect to him, a much more relaxed sort of demeanor when it comes to calling wrestling. We're all excited in the booth when we're calling these matches, and we get fired up in there in our own ways, of course. But I'd see Mauro has a certain intensity. JR has a much more smoother, effortless type of presentation. And I guess some of it for me is like Mauro and I will be in the booth calling these matches, getting fired up and high-fiving each other, and we're much more. Mauro is quite animated. When I crack Mauro up, man, he's over in his chair spinning around basically doing 360s and things like that. JR will laugh, he'll give a little smirk and a side look, and he's just right back on it. And that's kind of the way I see them in their differences.
Yeah, I've never seen JR just bust out laughing. It needs to become a goal.
Oh, that guy has a great sense of humor. Don't
Oh, he does.
My word. He is hilarious, and he says stuff in the booth. I can't think of all of his stuff that he's done over the years, man. I don't have that Mauro Ranallo, pro wrestling brain, or Dave Meltzer for that matter. But JR I have been able to get him crack up and laugh and not break so much, but he's having a good time in there, and it always makes my heart warm just a little bit to watch him chuckle and kind of hold on to his headset a little bit. But in terms of what he's going to give you product wise, he's not gonna show you his face. He's not gonna show his hand.
Now, it's like they found the one guy who wasn't a step back from Mauro Ranallo, and that's the one guy, because when we hear Mauro's leaving, it's like, who are they going to find? They went out and got Jim Ross. Were you worried or anything when Mauro left? I mean, not necessarily that the team would be.
Sean, you have no idea how stressed I was when I found out Mauro was leaving. I mean, yes, I was very happy that and in my opinion, the work that we did there made him so valuable that the WWE had to have him. I felt like that was a win all around in every way. And I was glad that Mauro's skills and ability were recognized for what they were. He was my number one MMA guy out there, and I'd said it many a time. But now it's like, yeah, that's right. Mauro's the shit. And, of course, you're going to pay him. But him leaving, all I could sit back and go, what the hell are we going to do? Was I going to have to take and I thought, well, I might have to be the lead guy now. I might have to start being the start and finish of this thing and doing a bit of color too and take on a heavier burden because I couldn't really think who they were going to come to fill in that spot. And that was a big role to fill. But instead of trying to fill shoes, they just brought in a pair of cowboy boots instead. So finding out that JR was going to be the new guy in the booth with me anyways, holy moly, it was just such a relief. And also now it made me a little nervous to go, oh man, okay, well I'd had such a groove with Mauro, I got to find a groove with JR. I mean, is he going to think I'm a total idiot? I mean, we get on, we've been friends for a while, you know, we feel, I think, a lot the same, you know, we have very similar thoughts on the sport, on the sport and the concept of professional wrestling, but it's just like, oh man, he's a legend. So yeah, try not to be shitty, Josh. And so far, so good. I feel like with every episode that we get to sit down with each other, the smoother and better it gets.
Is there any pro wrestling in your future? I know it's something that you've done in the past and done very well.
I hope so. I don't have any intent to stop professional wrestling, even if and when I retire from fighting. I feel like I've still got, whatever that day is, I probably still got at least another 5 to 10 years of wrestling still in me, I think. So I hope I'm able to go out there and get some more time in the squared circle doing, you know, what I love and doing some of the things and bringing the philosophies of the people that train me to be a professional wrestler.
Have you had any maybe feelers for any companies or even any independent companies reach out to you? Because the style in which you work has, you know, blown up here. I mean, even Matt Riddle's becoming a commodity on the indie circuit in America.
Well, I mean, I've never seen Matt work. You know, I don't really know anything about him that way. But to take a guy that was a fighter, and I think Matt Riddle might have been a wrestler too.
Yeah, he was.
You know, it makes sense. I mean, this he's going to have a leg up in terms of he's going to be in shape. He knows how to do it for real. And, you know, he's already familiar with the most difficult aspect of combat sports. Now it's a matter of, you know, basically teaching him how to dance, how to be more sensitive in a way. Not sensitive like if you call him a name, he breaks down and cries,
yeah.
You know, goes and buries his head in a closet for, you know, 7 days. But I mean, sensitive in the meaning of being able to pick up on things that just aren't so obvious, and being able to pick up on the small little things, not just from the wrestler, but the referee, from the crowd itself, and being able to be more in that moment and super present in that moment, to be able to ride those waves and make the most of them. To be able to manipulate your opponent in the ring and build that story. And not just be out there trying to do moves or do them badly, you know, in the case of some folks. I mean, let's be honest, not everybody who's a professional wrestler is very good. And, you know, that's always a struggle too. Just because you go out there and you train for it doesn't mean that, you know, it's going to be successful or that you're going to be that successful at it or that skilled at it. So, you know, everybody's got they have the work to do and they have a mountain to climb. But I think it's a head up if you can grab somebody that has some combat sports experience first. And if they don't, you know, hey, they could still be a teachable person, but I think that's a really important part of building a professional wrestler, not necessarily turning him into a shoot fighter, but they need to know the difference between reality and working so that they can work a match that has the intention and the feel of reality. So that when you do something that's over the top and more pro wrestler like, it feels like, no, that's legit because the intensity and the intent is there.
Yeah, I did a feature on, I don't know if you remember the WWF Brawl for All in the 1990s.
What a horrible idea that worked out to be,
boy.
man.
You're telling me. I actually interviewed JR for that, and I talked to Ken Shamrock, and he said, much so like what you said, where he had to learn how to work with these people. They brought him in from the world of real fighting, told him, okay, we want you to work with these people and not hurt them. Then they offered him a spot, and he said that his feelings were almost hurt because he was like, I had to build up all this trust with these people. Now you want me to go out and beat the living shit out of them? And that's what would have happened because very few of these people had any training to speak of.
Right.
Now you spoke about wanting to wrestle after your UFC career was done. How much longer do you see it going, or what do you see in your UFC future?
I see a fight, hopefully, this year, and I don't really put a hard number on things like that, because it's not so. If I decide that I'm going to retire in a year, well, maybe I still got a lot of gas left in me to go. So why cut it short then? Because I can't go back. You don't get to take those days, those hours, those years back. And when they're gone forever. So I'm going to make the most of this, with a reasonable intent, Hell, we're not in the TRT era. We don't get to extend our careers off of that anymore, now do we? So,
you could always go and box Floyd Mayweather, I guess.
Well, I could try, I suppose. Boy, wouldn't that be terrible? If you beat up Floyd Mayweather and you're me, it's like, way to go, you're a heavyweight. Or if you lose to Floyd Mayweather, it's like, way to go, you're a chump. So,
yeah.
not a good look there. Of course, if Floyd Mayweather wanted to pay me Floyd Mayweather money, I don't care. He could call me the most horrible person in the world for beating up a 150-pound man. I really wouldn't care. I would be like, and Floyd, here's your cut, and anytime you want to go out there and do this again, let's make it happen. But I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna get the most out of it. I'm gonna continue to wrestle after the fact. I'll probably even do submission wrestling stuff, body willing, and my athletic career is far from being over.
You mentioned submission wrestling as well. What you are, I assume you're still the current Metamoris champion. Do you have a future with that company?
That really depends on the company itself. Of course, they've been in some very rocky waters, and I'd like to see things get, mellowed out there, for them to start smooth sailing, as it were, to keep with the nautical theme, and be able to go back and defend that crown or whatever they call it. I think you get a crown. I'm the heavyweight king of Metamoris or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that having a professional grappling outlet is great for other submission wrestlers out there. Beyond Abu Dhabi, which is only every 2 years. And EBI, it's, that's cool. It's an opportunity, but everybody doesn't probably love everything about EBI necessarily, and that's a tournament. And then there's Polaris, and everybody's got their own sort of slant on it, which is understandable, because at the beginning of all of these things, it comes from the mind of somebody or some group of people, and they have their own ideas on how they want it to be. But Metamoris was the first real big one, and arguably possibly the one to really inspire these people that you can go out there and be successful running professional submission tournaments. And I think that it can be a great platform for athletes to go out there and succeed. And I think it was the best looking, best put together product, especially when they had their live shows. Those things sold out every single time, almost immediately. $450 tickets just snatched up like nobody's business, because they were a great time. They were a good place. They were a fun show to be at. And, I wouldn't say that the format of Metamoris is the best per se, but look, man, it's better to have something and need to make tweaks to it than to try to go from the ground up every single time.
Sure. There have also been rumors about a potential UFC sale. What do you make of that?
Well, I always remember the fact that all businesses are essentially for sale. If you bring them the right number. So that's something that, while it's always surprising to hear about at first, it's not entirely out of the realm of reality. I've read that Lorenzo is selling a chunk of his piece of the UFC. I've read that the whole company's for sale. And everything in between. But as long as their checks cash to me, and then I'm okay with things, I guess. I don't. A sale of a company alone doesn't necessarily equate to any negative consequences for me as talent or any of the other fighters. I think it would take a lot more than just that. You know, it would depend a lot on what would happen internally, where reins of power would be transferred or broadened, and if there was a new ownership, what would their intent be with the product, and where did they want to go with it? So, hey man, being sold is one thing, but that just means that there's a lot more questions to ask.
Yeah, by all means, if the rumors are true and it's to a Chinese company and they're able to get on that Chinese pay-per-view, that could be a largely positive thing for everybody up and down the roster.
Does China have pay-per-view? I'm not all that familiar.
I'm not familiar. I know that Shane McMahon tried to launch like a Netflix service-based service in China, and that's why he left, and it didn't take off.
It's not easy to do business in China, and what beyond cultural difficulties in terms of just the way they do business and the way that an American may do business, or Western European, or there's everybody does business in a different way, and not being familiar with that business environment is always a hurdle. But the way business is conducted on a governmental and legal aspect too is completely different in China. And things like the idea of for us to think of just having Facebook and Twitter and pretty much anything you could throw out there on the internet and being like, oh yeah, well, it's the internet. It's free for anyone to put up whatever they want and anyone to view whatever they want, essentially. It doesn't work the same way in China. So, there's a much more governmental restriction on a lot of things. So this is the idea of a pay-per-view over there. I'm not saying that it wouldn't exist or it doesn't. It's just, I'd be a little surprised. But because they have their own Twitter, I forget the name of it, but yeah, they have their own Twitter, their own variations of stuff. And if the Chinese bought the UFC, well, hell, maybe they'll start bringing dim sum after the weigh-ins, man. That would make I don't even have to cut weight. I would be so happy.
And finally, we saw kind of an upset. I don't know if I consider almost any fight at the top levels of the heavyweight division an upset, because there's more good talent than people give it credit for. Stipe Miocic really knocked Verdum dead, and now he's facing Alistair Overeem in his hometown of Cleveland. Do you have a favorite in that fight?
You know what? Between Stipe and Overeem, I mean, Stipe's got some good hard hands and a good wrestling game, which if that's what's initiating the pressure on Alistair, I could really see Alistair paying the price for it. But he's a big, well-rounded, he's got such a great game with his kicks and his knees, fighting from both stances. He could really confuse and hurt Stipe in these exchanges. He's taller as well, I believe. And Stipe had trouble with the skyscraper.
He did, yeah.
What's the tall Dutch dude's name again? Bob Schreiber?
Stefan Struve.
Stefan Struve. Struve.
Hit him with that inside kick, and then that punch that just knocked him out.
Yeah. So, I mean, distance, reach maybe could be an issue, but hey, man, most everybody has their struggles in the ring from one time or another, and I do see it, I guess, technically as somewhat of an upset that Stipe beat Verdum. I guess you have to look at it as an upset a little bit, but I felt it was much more even than people were giving it credit. I think the most surprising part was how that fight happened to finish. But weird enough, I mean, Stipe just backpedaled, punched him, and then backpedaled and punched him again as Verdum just sprinted right into a fist 2 times in a row.
Same way he knocked out Philip DeFries, too. It was almost identical.
Well, this big dude's running at you, so Stipe is not going to just stand there. And he didn't want to get tied up with them, at the moment. And it would appear he wanted to keep distance, and he wanted to box and kick more and feel out that striking exchange as the round was progressing. And so here comes this big old son of a bitch come barreling at you. He's like, well, I'm going to get out of the way. Oh, they're right in front of me. Punch. I don't know. And the look on Stipe's face is like, oh shit, here he comes, and then it's just like punch. Well, yeah, of course, punch. That's what you're supposed to do. And he wobbles him. He's kind of moving around, and he comes flying at him again. He moves back. Oh, okay, punch. He falls down. Fight's over. It's like, well, yay, that was nice.
He seemed shocked that he had won. He's running around. He's like, I'm the world champ.
Maybe, but I think some of it was not the shock that he won, but just shock that this mofo was flying at me, and I just punched him, and he flew at me again, and I punched him, and oh yeah, okay, it's over. You know, he's more surprised about,
the man who baited Fedor.
Yeah.
The man who baited Fedor into his first loss walked into.
Well, he didn't bait anything. He got flung around, hooked in the back of the head, and there was no way he was going to stand up with.
Well, if you were to believe him, yeah.
He didn't bait shit. What he did was he happened to work against Fedor's his mistakes that he was doing in training and some of his patterns. So Fedor had traditionally thrown the triangle off, just shucked it by. It's what he did against Nogueira over and over again, and all the other guys who've ever thrown a triangle up on him, he just throws it by. Well, Verdum is longer, and he's got longer legs, so that's going to be more difficult. And you'll see Fedor swings on him, he closes the distance, starts clubbing him around the head, bullying forward. Verdum is all the way on his back. There ain't no way he's standing up. In fact, he might have even gotten dazed or clipped to send him down there, but either way, he was off balance and he was going down. So he's on his back. Fedor dives in, as he has done his entire career, and Verdum throws at the triangle. What happened the first time? Fedor shucks the triangle off his head and throws it by. Verdum reguards, and Fedor looks to dive in again. But the second time, he wasn't able to clear, couldn't get it off, couldn't get that triangle free, and then got armbarred. You know, but that's, if you had watched his fights before that, he's done it before. And I actually said, you know, I think if Fedor was training the way he had been training in the past, and I don't believe that he was as focused and putting in the work that he had done in the past before, that had given him such a great win streak going into that fight against Verdum and going into that fight against Brett Rogers. And we were not seeing a guy operating at his best. You know, it's only his own fault. Nothing, you can't make an excuse for that. But nonetheless, that wasn't Fedor at his best. And I think at his best, still a risky endeavor to just think you're going to shuck 6'5" guys triangle off your head. But nonetheless, I don't know that fight would have necessarily ended the way that it did. And we'll never know because that's not how it happened. But there was no baiting. There was no baiting. That's fucking bullshit. He took advantage of opportunity that Fedor gave him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I should have said if Fabricio Verdum were to be believed. But it's funny you mention that because I remember after the Brett Rogers fight, which, you know, looking back, it's crazy to think that Brett Rogers was in that much of an advantageous position. But I remember Fedor's coaches saying that he was relying on too many of his old tricks that he used to get by on, and he wished that, you know, he wouldn't have done that. And then we saw what happened over his next three fights. Last question, I assure you, but what do you make of Fedor not coming to the UFC? I think that it was either him or his manager that revealed that the UFC gave him his biggest offer.
I don't know. You know, I don't think they've ever really said that the money was all that bad. I think that it was the terms of within the contracts themselves or where their sticking points were. And, you know, that is a factor that can really weigh heavily on signing a contract. Why it got to that point, all it can be said is just pure speculation. And while it's fun to speculate, I couldn't tell you entirely for sure. But I do at least believe that Fedor and whoever his manager is at the moment, I don't think he's managed by Vadim.
I don't think so.
Finkelstein anymore, but even still, I'm sure they also had a premium value assigned to Fedor, and Fedor put a premium value to himself as well. And so maybe they were looking for something in the end that was more than what the UFC wanted to pay out and did not want to pay it at a premium or at the premium that Fedor and his management felt that it warranted. So, I'm sure that definitely that has to play some role in it. But Fedor, as far as I know, isn't retired and is still willing to go out there and fight. So it is a possibility, I guess, that we could see him in the UFC. But I don't know. I don't think so. I think that some of the allure of Japan is still too strong for him to pass up.
Well, Josh, I want to thank you so much for joining me. We encourage everybody to check out New Japan on Access Friday nights. The newest Never Back Down, No Surrender, coming out in June. Anything else you want to leave the fans with before we go?
Well, just always stay in touch with me through Twitter at Josh L. Barnett, on Instagram at Josh L. Barnett, or I post funny memes and cat pictures like everybody else. And I do have an official Facebook fan page, which I run, and I put more than 140 characters into at, I think it's facebook.com/Josh Barnett official. And be sure to take a look at Never Back Down, No Surrender come June 7th, and let us know. Let me and Mike know what you think of it. Let Steven Quadros know what you think of it. And we're excited to bring it out there for all you guys. We had a great time filming it.
I'm also a follower of your Instagram. I am a huge supporter of the Catch as Cats Can movement, so all about that. Josh, thank you so much for joining me.